Waza. Nobody says that anymore, hey? Why not? Somebody should bring that back. Waza. What do you think? Little GMC shenanigans. Here, let me show you stuff. I'm masking it up a little bit. Whole bunch, really. I'll show you what's been going on here. Oh, yeah. So, where I'm at here is, got a bunch of seam sealing done. There's not much to do in here. Did some on the floor, too, underneath. Inside the rocker, blah, blah, blah. So, what we're fitting to do in is I am going to box line the floor and the firewall up in there inside here, and I'm going to do the roadside of the truck, the bottom of the floor, and the box liner as well. I'm going to do it in tintable box liner, so it's pink. You know, I'm not sure of the shade. I don't know exactly the correlation between this pink and a rooster's ooh. But you know, there's always that phrase, hey, the old rooster ain't pink. So that's what we're going to do this thing. So yeah, that's what we're getting ready for. So I'm going to box line just the floor. Most likely, I'm thinking tomorrow. I seam sealed it yesterday, and I like to let that seam, this is the brushable seam sealer in a can. A lot of guys will take a tube and the pumper on there and then spread it out. But I mean, you could buy 3 cans for the cost of 3 tubes, but a can goes 5 times as far. So anyways, that's what I done. So I brushed her in there. And I like to let that sit a couple of days because it's an air dry stuff. And if you don't let the shit dry up so that it's pretty hard when you poke at it, once you coat it, it won't dry up because it needs air to get at it to coat it. So once you paint it and your paint shells over and seals it off, it's not getting air anymore. So it's not going to continue to dry. So yeah, that's brushable. In these drip rails and stuff, I use a catalyzed product. I can't remember the name of it. Oh, Fusor. That's what I use. It's a 2-part product. It's catalyzed. So you put it on there, it hardens up. It never moves. It never loses its shape. It doesn't shrink as it hardens up. So in an area where you're filling, because I'll fill these gutters up here with self-leveling product, it's not going to shrink in. It doesn't shrink in around spot welds. It doesn't shrink in around lap welds or nothing. When you put a bead down, you put the bead down the way you want it to look underneath your paint, and that's what you get underneath your paint. You don't make a nice bead of it like you would with latex tape caulking where it looks really nice and you look at it the next day and the shit shriveled up like a wiener in a swimming pool. The 2-part stuff, it doesn't do that. It stays how you put it, where you put it, the way you put it, when you put it, how you wanted to put it. So put it how you wanted to put it. What the hell did I do with my razor blade? So anyways, there's our seam sealer talk. Now, another topic that you're probably wondering about as you're watching is it's not very often that people do this. And what I'm referring to is taping up this cab such as I am. One of the big reasons that I'm taping up this cab such as I am is it's got unsanded primer surfacer on it. Now, paint is a lot harder than primer. So when you blow paint and overspray and shit all over the primer, it takes more sanding to get the paint off than it does to get into the primer. Does that make sense to you? Because it dries up, it shells harder, and the primer stays soft. Did I just say that? I think I did. So I want to keep the overspray off of the primer. I know you see it all the time. Everybody just blows the paint past it. But I don't know. That's dirty work. I don't like that. I'd rather, I mean, for the 45 minutes that this is going to take me, it's going to save work. Not only is the paint harder than the primer, so it takes more sanding to get the paint off of the primer, but you're taking paint off of the primer here, but here you're taking primer off. You see what I'm saying to you? So you're not taking everything down at an even pace. Another thing is that the overspray of the paint, you know, where it's all stipply and sandy, with the sandpaper nowadays, So if you're sanding this truck with, say, some 220 or some 280 or whatever, and you've got overspray dust on there, you can take that paper. You just carved all the grit right off of that paper with that paint overspray. And if you don't believe me, try it, because it does it. With the finer grit papers, it's just bullshit, because the paper is, I don't even know what it's made out of, but it won't even. So in the long run, I'm saving some materials, and for the extra effort it's going to take to clean the paint and shit off, I mean, the time ain't no different. Well, it might be a little bit different. I might be saving a little bit of time. Also, I'm spraying box liner in here. And I'm going to have the cab up when I spray the floor. That shit goes everywhere. I mean, that shit, when you put that stuff in a gun and you blast it, it is like an ignorant prick sneezing. And sneezing and sneezing and sneezing. And it's blowing boogers everywhere. So, I don't want that kind of overspray on here, because that overspray, you got to scrape that shit off with a razor blade. And that's exactly what I'm not talking about. So we're going to do this, like I said, half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever, doing this here. And then in the way that I'm taping it with the jams and everything like this, well, I've only got to do this once. I've got to do this once to do the floors. I'll come in with a little bit of paper on the dash and on the back of the cab panel. I don't think I'll need to put any on the roof to keep the shit off of where I don't want it. And then after that stuff dries for a day or two, probably 2 days, then I'll come in and I'll lay some 36-inch paper on the floor here to make sure, to cover that up. And then I can paint the inside of this thing with the old Rooster D on the inside here. And I won't have to touch this, because I'm masked up for the 2 procedures. Then when I'm done, you have the old paper party, plastic party, rip it all off of there, and then get to getting. So, yeah, that's what I'm doing. So there. Another reason for doing this on a job like this, and it'll be the same on that 66 that you can't see, it's right over there, is there's a lot of raw steel here. All over the place we got raw steel. And I don't want to touch the raw steel 5 times before it's pink. And what I mean by that is, when you get something sandblasted, you want to go over it with some kind of sandpaper to knock. It's called a profile. You know the way it feels rough? Can you hear it? Here. So that's called a profile that you can hear. And that's the texture that the sand ricocheted off of it makes. Now, if you just paint over top of that profile, unless you put 16 coats paint on it, your paint ain't going to be shiny. It kills it every time. I don't really understand exactly why it does. I mean, the metal's not going to absorb the paint, but it sure as hell knocks the shine off of it. If you ever get something sandblasted and you put some paint on it and you're wondering why it looks like shit, well, it does. That's why. I don't know why, but it just does. So if you're painting something that you want to look like anything, then you got to go over it with something. I just go over it with 80 grit on a sander. Knock the profile off, and it always works out well. So if you don't cover that up when you're doing something like this here, then you're going to get overspray and shit all over that. Raw steel that's been sandblasted is what I'm talking about. So you're going to have to go over there and you're going to have to sand that paint that you've got on there. Because if you don't, your other paint ain't going to stick. It's going to peel off of there. So there. You want to sand your sandblasted steel before you paint it. You get me? Now, why the hell is it? Now, this razor blade, I have cut plastic, the holes, right? Now, I'm just cutting plastic, and this plastic ain't much. This razor blade ain't worth a shit anymore. Like, what the hell? So to do this, I mean, it's going to take me 3 razor blades. I know they only cost 2 cents each. So I think that's it for this, for today anyways. This is day 1, take 1. It'll be, next time you see me, we're gonna be in the booth spraying shit. I'm gonna finish this off here today. I just got a little bit more to do here, and then I ain't spraying nothing on this today. That'll be probably tomorrow. So, see you in a sec. What's up? See, I told you. It's another day. Does it look like another day? Well, it is. So here we are, masked up. etc., etc., etc. Here, I'll show you. I don't know if you give a shit, but I'll show you. You're here, right? Oh, gotta be able to get the firewall. So with this what's this Hujimafuzz thingamabobber here, you can see the oddity of it. So you just put your foot on there, and you give her, and yep, kaboom, flip this thing over. So what I'm fitting to do here is, here, let me stand you back up again. Am I blue? There you are. So the bottom, this is the bottom. We're going to do it rough. Ceiling stipple, you know, box liner kind of stuff. But then the inside, the floors, he wants it kind of smooth because they're going to stick down some Dynamat and shit. I have done this on my own vehicle, this same thing, only I left it rough both sides because whatever. But it actually, like I'm going to use, you probably can get this where you are. Oh, here, I'll show you this, will tell you enough. It's called Raptor Liner. It's not that expensive. And this kit this better be tintable. This kit that I have is tintable. Better be tintable. Are you tintable? Just a minute. Fill, shake, and shoot. Oh yeah, it's got a color wheel on it. So it's tintable. I did this once already, but I mean, you probably didn't see. I did the inside of a box on a Dodge truck. An old D100 that was just a and I used that stuff and it worked really well. You had like 15% color or something along those lines to it, and it takes color pretty good. So that's what I'm going to do. But we're going to do the inside fairly smooth because they want to put Dynamat or whatever, some shit on it. Oh, the point that I was going to make. So I did this on my own truck. I had a Blazer there for a while, an old Chev Blazer. And I put a serious amount of that shit on both sides of the floor, like I'm going to do here, but would have put more on mine. By the time you put a lot of that shit on both sides, you get a pretty good mill thickness, and it makes a pretty damn good sound deadener in of itself. I did a Bronco where he wanted everything on the inside lizard skinned. I don't know if you ever heard of lizard skin. So I did the inside of his Bronco with that shit, and I'd be okay if I don't ever see that stuff again. I don't know if it worked good or not, but what a bunch of bull-ish putting that stuff on. So the order of appearance here is going to be over in I've already got some epoxy mixed up. The floor's not very level, hey? So, coat of epoxy. The epoxy that I happen to have in my possession at this point is black, so that doesn't cover real well. So get a coat of epoxy, then I will put one coat of paint down just to get us started on the color, and then I'm gonna make with the, because you put it in a big in a shit's kind of. So here it is. Hey, one quick thing. So this is all bare steel. This truck has been in bare steel for well, it's been here probably a month that it's been in bare steel, and I'll bet you they got this thing blasted weeks before they brought it here. I'm going to say this truck has probably been bare steel for 7, 8, 9 weeks in pregnancy terms. Real world, it's been a couple of months easy that it's been bare steel, and it's still silver bare steel. Depending on the relative, humidity? It's hard to say humid titties without titties, isn't it? Humid titties? How much moisture is in the air? Depending on how much moisture is in the air where you live, and there's not much here right now, especially since the seasons are changing. So raw steel can hang around, well, this has been a couple of months now, and it's still gray raw steel. The only reason to panic in getting it in epoxy immediately, and oh my God, shit your pants and mix up some epoxy while the guy's still sandblasting it and you're right behind him with a paint gun putting epoxy on it, is because the epoxy companies tell you that you got to do that. So you got to get it in there and get some product bought, right? Well, let me tell you something. You don't got to panic. You don't got to freak out. It depends on, like I said, the humidity humidity. And it depends on yourself as a you. I had a young fella that I worked with a while back that he could take this truck as it sits right now, and he could walk up with his finger and do that at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You could come out here first thing in the next morning, and there's a brown fingerprint right there because he had enough whatever in his skin, oils, whatever, that, I mean, within hours, he would rust a panel. So I had to make him wear gloves. Whatever. So, yeah, we are ready to go. So I'm going to put a mask on and get some epoxy, and we're going to let her rip, Tater Chip. Now listen, hear me now and believe me later. If you're doing this kind of, let me get away from you here. Cut it out. If you're doing this kind of stuff for the first time, and by this kind of stuff I mean like painted, sandblasted metal, skip the step where you degrease it, where you wipe it down and dry it off. Don't do that. Don't ever do that. I know from experience, you're never going to get the shit off. When you try to wipe down the sandblasted metal, it's got the profile in it from blasting, it's rough. It shreds your towels, and you ain't never going to get that lint off of there. So the best you can do is blow the shit out of it, blow it and blow it, blow it like it's payday Friday, and you got $100 in your pocket, and that's it. Hope for the best. Here's another thing: when they blast stuff, so they can blast, hitting it in one direction, and as that sand's ricocheting around, that sand will go places, and it'll peel paint off that you can't get paint back on again. So I don't really know how you deal with that, because you can't. The sand hits this way, and then it ricochets back that way in a spot that's an inch wide. Well, you can't get a paint gun in there. So I don't know. Stinky. If you're going to do any extent, holy Christ, it stinks in here. I've got to talk fast. Any extent of this kind of stuff, learn how to paint with both hands. That's a lifesaver. Learn how to paint with both hands. Did you hear me? It didn't really go as well as I had hoped it was gonna, honestly. I mean, The floor's fine underneath, under there. Oh, good golly! Oh, that's too far down. But in here, I was really hoping that I could get it smoother than that. I mean, I've got it smoother than that by accident before. Like, this is fine, I'm sure, but I don't like not being able to do what I said I was going to do. And they want to dynamat it and shit, so they wanted it fairly smooth in here. I'm sure it's fine. I mean, you put that dynamat on with a roller, I think, right? So it'll stick in there. And I mean, yeah, like I got it on heavy enough that it's starting to slide here and there. And yet it's still got texture. Like I said, I mean, I've had this shit go on smoother than this by accident before. But, oh well. There it is, though. There's the color. Oh, yeah, and that's another thing. So I had to dust, like you've seen me underneath. I had to dust a little color on it. I didn't put like a heavy coat of color on it, and I did it while it was still wet because this stuff will kind of absorb the color. But it didn't take the color as well as I thought it was gonna. I don't know. I've used this shit in the past, and it took the color really well. This time it was really pastel-y. You know what I mean? Like it didn't have enough of the pink in it. Which, I don't know, whatever. I mean, the pink's got a lot of shit in it because, I mean, you saw it covered black in one coat. And usually that stuff takes color a lot better than it did. I mean, you can even see the difference between the jug and the can. Focus. But whatever. I gave her a dust of pigment over top, not enough for a serious coat. And like I said, the shit's wet enough that it'll pull the color into it. Just like that there. So, but anyways, there is, well, that's a nice picture, hey? There's a really rare colored, I mean, that's the color. There's your GMC full of Rooster D Pink GMC. So, next, in a few days, the rest of that in there will go a similar shade of that, and maybe not quite as lumpy. So if you're still watching, thanks.